Today on Mother Mayhem. I think my therapist is right that I'm stuck because I'm holding more compassion for my mom than I am for myself. But is the only way I can love myself is if I hate her? Do I have to hate her in order to heal? Can I get unstuck some other way? How do I get out of this loop? Welcome back to Mother Mayhem, the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast for Daughters. I am your host, Heather Gray. And today, ladies, I get to introduce you to Gabby and her therapist, Liz. Now, if the names Gabby and Liz aren't jumping out at you right away, let me tell you that I named them after two characters on the Apple TV show Shrinking. Now, Shrinking just finished its second season, and I will tell you that I quite loved its first season. I was glad when the show came back. But the second season, oh my word, that show, well, it just broke my heart wide open and hugs it in the same breath. It shows so much of the messiness of being human and of making mistakes. And what I really love about it is that everyone just fucks up out in the open. The characters blow up their lives in these beautifully human moments, and it's talked about between the characters on the show. Everyone is seen and loved and understood amidst all of their imperfections. I just love it so much, and it is definitely Mayhem approved. Now, on the show, it's Gabby who's the therapist and Liz who's Gabby's friend, which might confuse you a little bit when I name our Mayhem daughter Gabby and her therapist Liz. I did this because in the show, Gabby isn't just a therapist. She's human, just like the rest of us, with her own challenges and her own vulnerabilities. And Liz, well, she's the one who calls it out like she sees it. She's direct and honest and cuts through the noise without judgment, much like the therapist in today's letter. I am telling you guys, that show has my heart. So now I get to introduce you to our very own Gabby and Liz. They're trying to figure out how Gabby can have compassion for her mom and her mom's history without losing herself and without self-abandoning. Gabby asks me point blank, do I have to hate my mom in order to heal? And the short answer to that is, of course not. No. But we want Gabby to tell her story, and I'm going to find you all on the other side. Hi, Heather. I am writing to you with the encouragement of my therapist. Encouragement might not even be the right word. I would say she's egging me on a bit here, but I am taking her bet. We enjoy when we get to hear how other daughters use your show as part of therapy because we do that too. I have been with my therapist for about 2 years now. She introduced me to your show over a year ago, and it has been pivotal in my healing. It got me out of my echo chamber. It changed my life to know that this was something other women were hurting about and other women had experienced. And I have to thank every letter writer who has written in and shared their story. You women are so brave and so strong. And it isn't just Heather who's changing lives. You are too. Oh my gosh, of course. Without our Mayhem daughters, we don't really have a show, do we, friends? I don't know if I can change any lives by sharing my story, but the idea that I might be able to is what's giving me the courage to write this. I've been stuck in therapy for a few months now. We did the really big and heavy trauma work, but now we've been working on making my trauma smaller and working on helping it take up less space in my everyday. I still can get quite dysregulated a couple of times a week, and these difficult moments can reverberate within me for additional days. It takes me a while to feel calm after being triggered. I struggle with decision making. I'm always second guessing myself, I defer decisions to other people and I go with what they want rather than doing the work of figuring out what I want and managing the anxiety that would come with asking for what I want out loud. My therapist and I had an unusual moment for us in session. She didn't just disagree with me, she lost her patience with me. I had been talking about something my mom had said to me, and I started the sentence with, I know my mom can't help herself and that she didn't mean it this way. And my therapist asked, what makes you so sure? Maybe she did intend to be just that way. And maybe she, in fact, doesn't care how she comes across. The moment shocked us both, but we trusted each other and dug into that conversation. What came next was really powerful for me, and I think for her too. My therapist reflected back that I never just say what my mom did without offering the understanding of why she did it. I can't name a failing of my mom without also acknowledging how awful life was for her, and life was really awful for my mom. She has scars near both of her earlobes, along her neck, because her own mom used to grab her by the ears and drag her when she was in trouble. My grandmother actually pulled the skin away from my mom's neck on both of her ears, and she was never allowed medical attention for them. My mom grew up poor in the deep South, was often hungry, and was pulled out of school early to raise her siblings. We know now that my mom had undiagnosed learning disabilities, but her mom said she just wasn't using school right, so she might as well be useful at home. My mom also has a scar on her back from her father who beat her with something, and all I know from her was that it wasn't a belt. I know that my mom knows suffering and she didn't get to go to school. And I know she did her best, but also I know her best wasn't very good. I've never been hit or physically threatened, but my mom doesn't know softness, affection, or anything close to love. Even with animals, I don't ever see her soften into their affection. My mom seemingly wanted to be my best friend, wanted me with her all the time, but never liked me very much. I was expected to do a lot for her and with her, and I imagine she learned that from her own mom's expectations of her. There I go again, telling you why she couldn't be my mother because her own mother was so awful. I think my therapist is right that I'm stuck because I'm holding more compassion for my mom than I am for myself. But is the only way I can love myself is if I hate her? Do I have to hate her in order to heal? Can I get unstuck some other way? How do I get out of this loop? Whew, okay, ladies. Oh my goodness. Hi, Gabby. Hi, Liz. Welcome to Mayhem. What a privilege it is to be a part of this therapeutic process. And I think we're going to do some really good work together in this conversation. So, Gabby, deep breath, sister. Now, really, honestly, go ahead and take that deep breath. Because I imagine you're bracing yourself a little bit and wondering if it's about to be two therapists against one daughter. I promise you it's not. Gabby, sometimes it's easier to see our own experiences through someone else's story. So, if you'll allow me a little bit of storytelling, I think it might help us connect some dots together. As you might know from other times and other things that I've shared on the show, I was raised in a pretty harsh environment too. I'm a natural born crier, and even now as an adult, I love to cry. I feel everything, and I am the only one in my family who's like that. So, of course, my emotions were ridiculed, they were mocked, and they were judged. My family just couldn't understand them. I'm also a hugger, and well, my family isn't really into those either. I remember going in for a hug with my dad one time and him saying, "Not now, Heather." And I don't remember much physical affection from my stepmom pretty much ever. When she was feeling affectionate, she'd buy me things. She'd give me more TV privileges, or she'd get a special treat or a dessert for me. When I think of the harshest moments of my upbringing, the first thing I remember is a time when a pen had broken in my backpack without realizing it. I then put the backpack on our dining room rug and I ended up staining the rug. My stepmother, when she saw the mistake, said, "My God, Heather, it's a good thing your mother is dead. Even she wouldn't be able to love you right now." We always had to keep the cleanest of rooms, too. Everything in place, and I remember being on my hands and knees while she stood over me with a yardstick, pointing out each piece of lint I had missed because she wanted clean rugs, but she didn't trust me with the vacuum. And Gabby, I also remember a time when I was in my room doing my homework and it had gotten dark outside. My lights were on and the shades were up, and she chastised me for not putting the shades down. The town park was in her backyard, and as she yanked my shade down, she told me that I deserved to be raped for being so careless, that some creeper was probably staring in the window that very moment, just waiting for me to take my shirt off. Those were the kinds of things I heard growing up, Gabby. And let me tell you, I didn't just dislike her. I hated her. I didn't give any kinds of shits whatsoever as to why she was treating me the way she was. Not at all. I hated her so deeply that it felt like it was a part of my identity. It was woven into everything I thought about myself and my life. But also, too, admittedly, that hatred didn't stop me from constantly also trying to win her love, to get her to change her mind about me, to rewrite the narrative I so desperately wanted to be true. All of my friends knew I hated her, Gabby. There was no hiding it. Hell, you know what? Even my bus monitor knew. I would sit near her on the bus because, I was that kind of cool kid, and I would regale her with the tales of woe. I hated my stepmother so fiercely, so convincingly, that it actually became a point of pride. And still, Gabby, I found myself sitting in a therapist's office, unraveling years of pain and longing, just like you do now. If hating your abuser was the answer to healing, well, shoot, wouldn't that make it all so much easier? When Liz is trying to point out to you how you talk about your mom, I have a feeling she's hearing what I'm hearing. You are giving your mom the compassion that you actually need for yourself. You don't have to hate your mom. You can see her scars and the marks on her body, and you can know how hard her life was. You can even know that she wasn't given a chance at learning how to be a good mom. So, of course, she screwed it up. You can know and hold all of that. But you also need to hold and own her limitations, or how her limitations and her failures and her abuse have had a tremendous impact on your life and on the struggles you have today. Your life is harder because her best wasn't much, and it wasn't close to what you needed or what you deserved. And Gabby, I got to tell you this. I get where you were at too. I see why it feels like you have to keep your mom's trauma front and center. It feels safer to frame her cruelty through the lens of what she's been through. Because, of course, if you don't, you are left confronting the raw reality of what it is like to be on the other side of her actions. The way her words can hurt with like pinpoint accuracy, they don't just wound you, but they leave you questioning if you deserved them in the first place. And then her silence, it can stretch in that space between you and it can suffocate you. And it can feel so incredibly heavy with disapproval. The way she could perhaps just look over you, like not just uninterested, but maybe even dismissive. almost as if you're less than, like you don't count. Living in the shadow of treatment like that, Gabby, rewires you. It teaches you to shrink yourself, to stay quiet, to anticipate the next strike before it lands. It leaves you holding her pain because it's easier than holding the truth of how she treated you. It becomes easier than accepting that her behavior wasn't accidental or reactive, it was deliberate. And maybe it feels impossible for you to think of her in that way. Maybe you feel disloyal, or maybe it feels cruel of you to be thinking of her in that way. And if that's true for you, Gabby, I want you to know that's okay. You don't have to call her anything. You don't have to define her behavior with any words. What matters is letting yourself see what's real, how her actions made you feel small, silenced, invisible, and how you've been carrying that pain as your own. What we do need you to label and own in order to be able to heal is her behavior and how it impacted you. We don't have to qualify it, judge it, rate it, or compare it to anyone else's hurt. But we need to get you to name her behavior and how it impacted you so we know what it is you are healing from, and so we know where it's hurting and how it's impacting you the most. And I think I can help. But first, if you're open to it, I would like to address the resistance you're experiencing. That resistance is what created tension between you and Liz. It's tied to the challenge of easing off that compassion brake so you can fully engage in the healing process. And when I talk about resistance and I name resistance, I'm not telling you that you're being difficult. You're not avoiding the work. You're not doing anything wrong. Resistance, well, it's serving a really important role for you right now. It's protecting you. Our first step has to be to acknowledge it, to let it know that we see it and that we respect its purpose. Because pretty soon we're going to be gently asking your resistance to take a back seat, to take a step back, and to give you the space you need in order to be able to move forward. For that to happen, it's essential that we get you feeling safe. By creating a sense of safety for yourself, we can help your trauma brain and your nervous system begin to trust your wise mind and allow you to take the next steps in your healing. So, here goes nothing. Hi, Resistance. Let me introduce myself. I'm Heather, a friend of Gabby's. And first, let me say, good on you. You have done a very good job. Job well done. You got me, Gabby, and Liz all looking at how she talks about her mom. And that is no small thing. You're sharp and you're protective. And I respect that. Of course, it is hard for Gabby to face the truth about her mom. That isn't who she is. Gabby has a warm heart. She sees the good in people, even when it's hard to find. And that's a strength of hers. And we know that. That isn't something to minimize or pathologize. And we're never going to want to take it away from her. But here's the thing, Resistance. You and I both know that Gabby isn't stuck because of how she talks about her mom. She's stuck because she's done the heavy lifting. She's processed those big T traumas, and she has now successfully cleared the way to live. Now she's ready to take the next steps. She can get ready to make her trauma smaller. She can start managing her dysregulation, and she can start leaning into her needs and her preferences. And we know it. This is where it starts getting real, Resistance. Gabby, she wants to live again. She wants to speak up, make decisions, stop second guessing herself, And she wants to start being able to embrace her own life. You saw that one coming, didn't you, Resistance? And because you care about her, you stepped in to protect her. But I'm asking you to trust us. Gabby's ready. She doesn't need you fighting her battles anymore. Instead, we need you to step back, to sit beside her and cheer her on as she tries to start this next chapter for herself. Okay, Gabby, I'm back. I hope I didn't lose you there. It's you and me again. It is totally fine if you thought that one was a little cheesy. I did myself, but I hope it didn't come across as condescending. That wasn't at all my intention. I just needed to create some safety in this conversation so we can talk about the really hard thing, the elephant in the room, your next steps. Because next steps and next stages, they can be pretty scary. You don't know what's going to be asked of you, what might need to change, or what you might need to let go of. And it is understandable to feel worried about what lies ahead. Maybe even feel a little nervous about how your relationship with Liz might end up having to shift if you continue healing and growing. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But here's the good news. We get to take this one step at a time, and it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. We can make this process so much safer and way less intimidating for you. Now, in your letter to me, you mentioned some really important goals: better decision making, less second guessing, and more emotional stability. And those are really great goals. But I also know they can be pretty intimidating, especially when they start to require you to shift how you have grown accustomed to moving through the world. I think we can make these goals feel a little more approachable if we start with the why behind them. So here's an exercise for you. I want to get better at decision making because, and then you fill in the blank. Or try this one on for size. When I make decisions more confidently, I will be able to dot, 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 and then fill in that blank. Really take your time with it, Gabby. This exercise isn't about finding that perfect answer right away. It is about starting to connect with why these changes matter to you, what they will bring into your life. And then when you're ready, you and Liz will be able to use those reasons to help guide you through the next steps and make each goal feel a little less intimidating. And I imagine each of the things you're working on, the not second guessing, better decision making, might have a few whys or a few reasons behind them. So just start asking yourself questions like that. Start filling in those blanks and understanding the motivation behind why you want what you want. And I think that'll help you get a little bit clearer. And I know you and Liz, you guys are going to talk about all of this, and you guys will come up with a plan that works for you. And I hope I get to find out how that one unfolds for you. One thing I do want to encourage you to do here is start breaking down that path forward into manageable steps. You didn't get stuck, quote unquote, for months, Gabby. What was really happening for you was resistance. You got frozen because you didn't know what getting better would look like, what would change, or what might be asked of you. So I would suggest that you work with Liz to start painting that picture of the process and the steps involved. And you and everyone listening here, you all know me, and I have spent some significant time in recent episodes doing those deep dive into the steps and the skills, and that all has value. I don't think that's what you need right now here, Gabby. I think you need to see what a more healed version of your life might even look like. You need to be able to picture it. You've got to feel it. So ask yourself, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? And now, Gabby and all of you ladies, go ahead and do yourselves a favor here and grab a notebook or your notes app or whatever you use to journal these days or take notes. This is actually one of my favorite questions to ask clients. And I have probably already asked this on the show, but we're going to do it together. If I were already the woman I wanted to be, living the life, love, and work that I wanted, what would that life look like? I want you all to write it out with as much detail as you can put in. The more vivid the picture, the better. And I know it's scary to think about what's next for yourselves when, in some ways, you might feel like you barely got your feet under you in the first place. And here's the thing, a while back, a lot of you started asking me to build an online community and to start hosting retreats. And Clark can tell you I had my own resistance to face on that one. But I got clear with myself. If I were the mayhem leader I wanted to be in the community I wanted to create, what would that look like? What would I offer? What wouldn't I offer? I had to dream it out. I had to build it out. And then, only then, could I start to want it more than I was afraid of it. And now, because I took the time to get really clear on that vision, Mayhem Daughters, our online community, well, it's open. So don't skip the dreaming part, my friends. Take the time to truly visualize what it's going to look like, how it's going to feel inside your skin, inside your body. Imagine the kinds of thoughts you'll start to have, the decisions you'll be able to more confidently make. Get so crystal clear on what it is you all are fighting for. Healing is really hard, but on the other side of all of this hard work is a life that y'all can start to feel proud of. And that life is worth fighting for. And if you'd like to see what I've built over at Mayhem Daughters, I would, of course, love to have you guys join us. There's a link to sign up in the show notes. But Gabby and everyone else, don't rush yourselves through this. Let yourselves daydream. It's such an important part of this process. And I learned this one myself the hard way. I realized that so much of what I thought I wanted was based not actually on what I wanted, but on what I thought I was supposed to want. Try saying that one 5 times fast. Taking the time to get really clear on the actual vision was what eventually allowed me to bring that vision to life. That is exactly how I built Mayhem Daughters because it was my vision and not the one I thought I was supposed to have. Now, Gabby and Liz, we got to talk about that moment in your therapy office. Gabby, you said that Liz lost her patience. And Liz, let's be clear here, you and me. You are not alone in that moment, not by a long shot. There are other therapists listening to this conversation, and they are saying, me too, sister. And I have been there too, more times, admittedly, than I might care to count. I do know that feeling when you're just trying to break through, to connect, to say the thing that's going to wake the client up, to shake them up and help them see themselves the way we see them, their strength, their worth, and everything that they're capable of, everything that's possible for them on the other side. And Liz, if it makes you feel any better, moments like that one, well, they don't even register on the Richter scale of mistakes I have made with clients. Here's something I would love for you to reflect on. One of the greatest gifts we can give our clients is the chance for them to see us as human, to see us mess it up, to lose our cool, to get it wrong, and then to see us lean into the repair. When we own our mistakes, apologize, and show up for the relationship, we are modeling something that they've never gotten to have before. That people who care will mess up sometimes, but they'll also come back, do the work, and make it right. And that isn't a small gift you're giving in that one, Liz. You showed up for Gabby in a way that's going to stick with her. So good on you. And just a friendly reminder, I am in it with you too, always. And Gabby, Liz was right. Neither of you may like the way that her words came out, but she was right. She saw you giving your mom more consideration and compassion than you were giving yourself. And Gabby, I get it. Your mom's scars, they're visible. They're on her ears. They're across her back. You can see them. But just because your wounds aren't physical doesn't mean that they don't leave a mark. Those stories of my own life that I shared with you earlier, they were a million years ago. Why do you think they came up so quickly and so easily? Because words, they cut and they wound. They burrow and they get in deep. And then they have this nasty thing where they rise to the surface in moments of our own vulnerability. And Gabby, you deserve some compassion around all of that. And I know some of you daughters are listening and you're probably rolling your eyes and you're thinking, oh, great, here comes the self compassion lecture again. And you know what? You're right. Unapologetically, yes. If I could get every single one of you to start showing yourselves more compassion, to recognize that all of you are doing the very best you can with the tools, the skills, the knowledge, the resources, the time, and the energy that you have at your disposal right now, well, I'd be talking myself out of a job. But here's the thing, self compassion isn't trite, and it is not, I promise you, a cliche. It is radical, it's necessary, and also it is really hard. I need you and all of you listening to take self compassion a little more seriously. You deserve the same compassion you have been willing to offer your moms or other people. And I know right now you're probably all wondering just a little bit how the heck you're supposed to do that, even though, admittedly, we have talked about this on the show quite a bit. So we're all going to start small together. Gabby, buckle up. We don't want you overthinking it. So the next time you catch yourself being critical or dismissive of your own feelings, just, take a second to pause. Notice it. That moment of noticing, well, it becomes a crack in the door. And that is where self compassion is allowed and able to start slipping in just a bit. So you can ask yourself, would I talk to a friend like this? Because I don't think you would. I think you would be reminding your friend that she's doing the best she can with what she has. And guess what? Shocker. Spoiler alert. That's what you're doing too. And it might feel strange at first, and it's likely going to feel uncomfortable. But that's okay. It's not a reason not to do it. And of course, it feels strange and uncomfortable. It's new. And new things, especially things that challenge the way we have always been treated, can feel a little bit awkward. But it doesn't mean that it's not worth trying. Self compassion, I think one of the reasons why you guys go nutty around this and roll your eyes and don't listen to me is sometimes, especially in the social media space, it's misinterpreted and it's seen as this grand gesture. It doesn't have to be stupid grand. It can be as simple as saying, I hear you when your inner critic starts talking. Or maybe you're giving yourself permission to rest when you're tired, even if there's still dishes in the sink. It is about treating yourself with the same tenderness and care that you would be offering someone else. And here's the thing, Gabby, the more you practice this, the more it builds. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about showing up for yourself, even when it feels messy or hard. And Gabby, when you say you're feeling chronically dysregulated, I think I might get that. Now, you're going to have to hear me out a little bit here and see if this feels true for you because it might not feel true for you, and you and Liz might need to pick this one apart a little bit more. But growing up in an environment like the one you described, it makes a lot of sense to me because kids who experience trauma often aren't allowed to feel their feelings, not fully and certainly not safely. And those of you with narcissistic moms, it gets even trickier because let's be honest, they like it when their kids are anxious. Your moms liked it, they fed off of it. That kind of anxiety, it keeps the focus on your moms, on what they need, what they want, what they feel. It becomes attention disguised as care. So it is no surprise that over time, feelings start getting funneled by all of you into anxiety because that is the only safe emotion that's allowed to exist for you. But here's the thing, everyone. Sometimes what feels like anxiety isn't actually anxiety at all. Sometimes when dysregulation feels quote unquote treatment resistance, like your go to tools and tricks aren't even touching it, it isn't because you're failing or because you're not doing it right or even because you're destined in some way to feel this way forever. It's because what's actually going on underneath the surface is an anxiety. It might be sadness, it could be anger, it might be disappointment, it likely, in all likelihood, could even be grief. Feelings that are just as valid, but they weren't allowed to exist when you guys were kids. And because they weren't allowed, they learned to start sneaking in through the back door. They learned to disguise themselves as anxiety. What would it look like, Gabby, and everyone listening, if you got a little bit curious about that? To pause the next time anxiety flares up and just gently ask yourselves, what else could this be? What am I really feeling right now? You're not going to have all the answers and you don't have to right away. This is about giving those other feelings a chance to exist, to open the door, roll out the welcome mat, for them to be named, felt without judgment, without assigning a narrative to what they mean, without trying to push them away. What would it look like if you allowed for those other feelings to come to the surface and have a name, even just a little bit? And when you start getting curious about what's really going on underneath that anxiety, it sometimes can help a little bit to experiment. Think about it as if you're like giving yourselves permission to try different things, to try on different clothes, and to see what fits. For example, you might start to notice that anxious energy bubbling up. And instead of jumping straight into problem solving mode for it, try slowing down a little bit and checking in with your body. Ask yourself, what does this feeling want me to know? Sometimes feelings just need to be acknowledged, like that little kid that tugs on your sleeve and says, "Hey, notice me, pay attention to me." Or like my dog that like paws on my leg when I'm not looking his way in enough time. Or if naming that feeling feels too big or too vague, even, start with a little more basics, if you will. Is it heavy? Does it feel like sadness? Is it hot and sharp like anger? Is it tight like fear? These clues can start to give you a little bit of insight into what might really be going on for you. And here's another idea: give the feelings a safe place to land. Journaling can be really incredible for this. Not that like polished kind where you feel like you're writing a novel, but like the messy, no rules kind where you just dump whatever comes to mind. But you can even set a timer for something like 5 minutes. Start with, I feel dot, dot, dot. and just give yourselves permission to let it flow, to let loose, and then to let it go. And that might not be your thing, and that's okay. If it's not, I would encourage you to try a more physical outlet. Sometimes our bodies know what our minds don't, and movement, like a walk or yoga or punching a pillow, sometimes it can just shake a little bit of what's loose and what might be stuck inside. The point here is there is no one size fits all approach here. This is about trying different tools, listening to yourself, and seeing what actually helps you start to feel more settled, a little more seen. You have already done so much of the hard part by noticing the dysregulation and wanting to understand it better. That is not a small thing. That is significant. It is huge. And I would encourage you and cheer for you to and root for you to keep going. And I know I've talked your ear off, so I'm going to dial it back a little bit. But Gabby, thank you so much for writing in with this question. And Liz, I I just don't know what to say. Another therapist using this show to guide another daughter's healing, that's such a compliment, honestly. Thank you for trusting me with your people. And I hope you feel that I did right by both of you today. And all of you listening, I really hope you connected too to today's conversation. And I hope you took my conversation about more self compassion to heart. I promise too that this isn't going to be the last time you're going to be hearing me talk about it. And ladies, this kind of work, getting curious about your feelings, experimenting with what works for you, building that self compassion muscle, it's not something you have to do alone around here. That is exactly what we do every week inside of Tuesday Group. It is a space where daughters come together to share, to support, and explore their challenges in real time. We talk about things like dysregulation, compassion, what it really takes to show up for ourselves in a way we never learned how to do growing up. And it is not about fixing everything all at once. It is about learning to take small steps and support in this beautifully supportive, non judgmental space. And if you might be looking for a more broader community that is way the heck off social media to connect with, Mayhem Daughters is where that conversation keeps going. We have built an online space where you can join other daughters navigating similar experiences. You might be swapping insights, sharing wins, just feeling seen. It is a place to find connection and support anytime you need it. Both spaces are there to remind you that you don't have to be doing this alone and you shouldn't be doing it alone. You've already taken such brave steps, and these communities are here to keep you company and walk alongside you. So, if you find yourself ready to take that next step, you are going to find the details for both of those resources inside of the show notes. We would love to have you join us. All of you are in this community of women around the world who are in this together. And I, for sure, most definitely, am in it with you too. Bye for now. I do hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you have a question you'd like me to consider for the show, please do email me over at heather@daughtersnpd.com. You are always welcome to share your story or questions by recording yourself using the voice app on your phone. For best recording quality, please do record directly into your phone without using headphones or Bluetooth speakers. We're building an incredible community as well over on Instagram, and I'd love to see you over there too. You can find us at Daughters NPD. Lastly, if you love what you've been hearing here on Mayhem and have found the show helpful in your own trauma recovery, please do consider becoming a Mother Mayhem sponsor by purchasing Simple Scripts for Saying Hard Things. It's a resource I created that provides the right words for the hard conversations and it covers life, love, and work. You'll find a link for that in the show notes. If you know another woman who needs this conversation in her life, please do share the show with her. Your reviews and social shares help spread the word, and I hope you'll consider doing so. Special thanks to Heather Clark for editing the show. She's in my head and knows what I meant to say when the words come out backwards. Thanks so much for your time today. As always, I'm in it with you. Bye for now.